So we're talking about a two-part approach to working with graduate students in digital scholarship. And I'm going to talk about the first one. Before we get started, so my part is about the immersion program, which is a kind of a boot camp for digital scholarship. And I'll tell you more about that in a second. So Cornell University, if you don't know about it, we're going to be 150 years old next year. 21,500 students, 5,000 of those are graduate students. The library, and that's what I'm representing, and so is Mickey Casad. We're a big R1 research library. We have about 18 specialized libraries on campus. We do not have a digital humanities center at Cornell, but in the library, we are actively building a digital scholarship program pretty successfully, I think. So the immersion program comes out of a study that was done in 2010-2011 in partnership with Columbia University. And this study was after a spate of studies and statistics about how long it was taking humanities graduate students in particular to earn their PhD. So the study was very interesting. You can read about it. It was ethnographic interviews of graduate students and on-site visits of them talking about their work habits and the problems they encountered. And it was all about identifying issues that the library could help with. And we identified 5 issues: provide better space, foster community, provide access to deep research collections, provide research information management and teaching expertise assistance, and developing a scholarly identity. As a result of that study, we built a new grad space in Olin Library, which was the former graduate student library, and it's very nice. And I don't know that it's as nice as this space, though, now that I've seen your space. And that's Olin Library, the big blocky Cold War building stuffed with books. I love it. I'm sorry. So the other thing that came out of that study was the immersion program. So it was intended to address some of those other issues, and we applied for and were awarded a small IMLS grant for it. Its first year was 2012. 2015 will be its 4th year. It is a competitive application process for graduate students. So they make a very brief application. We choose 10 or 17 students a year. We pay them a small stipend as incentive, which they like. It takes place in January, right before the semester starts, and as it turns out, that timing is really, really good. During the program, there's January. During the program, we ask for and receive lots of feedback from students, and then we use the feedback to modify the program every single year. It's never been the same, although there's a core you'll see in a second. The first year in 2012, we tried to be very holistic. We worked with everyone on campus. We worked with the Writing Center, the grad school, the health center, and a whole bunch of other people. But the feedback that we got was the library sessions were actually more successful and more appreciated. So over time, we have actually gotten more library-centric. We also started out having more speakers. So at lunchtime, we would invite faculty to talk about being a successful scholar and newly minted PhDs. We dropped that. Now the lunch is purely social and community building, and because the day is so technology packed, that actually has worked really well. Here are some of the core topics, and some of these topics are also standalone workshops, but we were just talking about this at the breakout session, we cannot get really good enrollment for our workshops. But when we bundle it together, we get great attendance, and then they build on each other, so it's very successful. All of those are taught by different librarians, of course, or other people. And last year, the 4th day was an optional day of digital scholarship, in which it was an introduction to digital humanities and digital scholarship. It was hugely successful. This year in 2015, it's not optional, it's just part of the program. We have a LibGuide that you can check out. You can Google it right now. It is Olin Cornell Guide, Olin Grad as one word. You'll find it really easily. The feedback has been so gratifyingly positive. I'm going to read you a couple things. A lot of what we covered is useful and has been far more helpful than my department's Colloquium series for first-year students. I wish that the Intro to Graduate Studies that we are required to take in my department would have been more in line with the format of this immersion program. I've learned more in 2 days here than I did in that class for an entire semester. The most important thing I learned is that there are like-minded grad students facing similar challenges. A lot of the panels I wouldn't have gone to on my own because I wouldn't have realized they are important to me. The immersion program cut out a lot of that frustrating self-learning. This program took everything to another level. There were so many moments that I didn't know what was going to happen, but because the program was pushing us through, I learned so much more. And finally, thank you for this truly wonderful program. So I'm going to turn it over to Mickey, and she's going to tell you about part 2.
Oh, sorry. I just clipped myself in with this thing. Hi. Hi, everybody. I will tell you about the continuation of this program. Can you hear me okay? I can't tell if I'm mic'd or not. This is just some more, news and positive coverage of the immersion program. So I'm going to talk about the summer fellowship program in digital scholarship for humanities graduate students. My name is Madeline Casad. I'm a curator for digital scholarship in the Division of Digital Scholarship and Preservation Services at Cornell University Library. Just some basic information. Our summer fellowship program, we've run this now for 2 years. 2013 was our pilot year. We ran it again last year. It's a 5-week intensive program held during the summer. We have an on-site cohort of 5 graduate students each year, and these are graduate students from Cornell. I'll talk a little bit about the application process in a moment. The point of this really is just to expose students really kind of on a workshop level to a variety of tools and platforms and concepts in digital humanities and provide support as they create a project of their own. Backtracking just a little bit, a couple of questions. Why digital humanities and why graduate students? So when Virginia was speaking about the immersion program, it was coming out of this study that was part of a lot of scrutiny and possible consternation about the fact that graduate students were taking longer and longer to finish their degrees. Graduate students in the humanities, that is, taking longer and longer to finish their degrees. There was a high dropout rate. And generally, a sense of concern from university administrations. This happens everywhere. I think that humanities programs are increasingly being called on to demonstrate their relevancy, and numbers like that really don't help the situation much. Digital humanities can be seen as something that can revitalize the humanities fields in a lot of ways. We can talk about that. I don't think it's a silver bullet, but there are aspects of digital humanities as a field of activity that kind of interject new life and new forms of collaboration and new methodologies into humanities departments that might be a little bit stuck in their ways. The question, why graduate students? Why graduate students? Graduate students are caught, in a sense, between tectonic shifts that might be happening in the academy right now. So on the one hand, they will be hired, they hope, by academic departments that are looking for someone to come in with a certain amount of digital humanities expertise or knowledge. On the other hand, very often they're coming from graduate programs that don't have structures in place to offer them that, or offer them the kind of training that they would need to point to on the job market. Graduate students that we've talked to experience a certain amount of frustration and anxiety about this, looking at bad job markets and not being able to point to, digital humanities expertise that they would very much like to develop. On the other hand, if the long-term goal is to transform the academy somehow, graduate students are really well situated between faculty who have been there for a long time and undergraduates who are just kind of passing through. A lot of the undergraduate teaching time at many large research universities is handled by graduate students one way or another. So they're in a good position to kind of innovate. They have a lot of energy for teaching. Those of you who've worked with graduate students probably know this already. And a lot of energy for trying out new things. So those are all attractive things for us about working with them. So the question then is how to do this, how to create some sort of program for graduate students that would give them a little bit of experience with digital humanities when we as an institution have no digital humanities center, no digital humanities librarian as such, and no real programs yet in place to do this. Well, do this by diving in. What else are you going to do, right? Like, those programs don't make themselves. So scrutinizing again these kinds of no factors that we were looking at, we have no digital humanities center and no digital humanities librarian who's identified as such. That's kind of another way of saying that we have no anointed expert in this area yet, and no institutional mandate yet, because the financial risks can be pretty high in a large institution for pulling something like this together. But the spirit of digital humanities really is much more about, forgetting about the cult of expertise, just getting your hands dirty, making something happen, making contacts with other people who know what's going on. And looking at this again, we realize that in the library we have a fantastic network of people who are really experienced and really have a lot to say and a lot to offer in a really wide variety of areas that are maybe oblique or peripheral to digital humanities as such, maybe not labeled digital humanities as such, but areas that are pretty necessary for getting a DH project off the ground and running. People who can really speak to some of the questions that might arise. So I'll leave this list up there. I don't necessarily have to rattle off everything on it, especially since we're a little short for time. The question about having no programs yet in place, we knew we wanted to make something, and we knew we had a really, really excellent model with a Graduate Student Immersion Program. Not only because of all of the excellent feedback that was coming out of that program and the teaching expertise from our colleagues who were really managing that program, wait, I lost a slide. But also we had kind of a ready cohort, a kind of pilot group of applicants that we could contact almost on a personal level, because they all retained contact with librarians like Virginia and the others who were spearheading the immersion program. It was a pretty close cohort of students the alumni kind of kept together. So we had kind of a contact list already of people that we knew would be interested. So on this basis, we were able to get some support from 3 co-sponsors to do a pilot version of a summer fellowship program in 2013. The co-sponsors were the Division of Digital Scholarship and Preservation Services, which I work for, Olin and Uris Library, Virginia's Home Department, and the Cornell University Society for the Humanities. Sponsorship, I'll say again more about this in a moment, sponsorship wasn't for any costs other than stipends for the graduate students themselves. Everything else about this program we kind of scraped together just on staff time that we squirreled away from one project or another project and kind of made it happen. What we wanted to do with this, what we wanted was to have an opportunity to kind of learn by doing and learn as we go. We came in without a lot of digital humanities expertise or training ourselves, those of us who were instructing in this program. But we knew that we wanted to build a program of DH instruction, so we needed to kind of start someplace and work as we go. We wanted to consolidate and formalize just a little bit some of the informal networks of people that existed in the library system, people who were interested in and able to teach in these areas. We also wanted to continue cultivating relationships with graduate students and departments that we hoped would be fruitful and that we could draw on later on. What we didn't want a situation where students would come in and require intense mentorship from library staff, because we simply didn't have the resources to make that happen. We also didn't want a situation where graduate students in a humanities discipline would come in and be sort of fit into existing library projects. There are a lot of possibilities for that, a lot of space where graduate students might be able to do that, but we didn't want this program to be that kind of program. Again, precisely because we didn't have the staff resources to really teach somebody from the ground up unless we knew they were going to be on that program, on that project for a long time. So with those things in mind, we put together this program that was designed to be project-driven. So designed to be driven by the graduate students' own projects that fit into their professional goals however they saw fit. So some of them were more pedagogically oriented, some of them were more research-oriented. We wanted a situation where there would be a lot of active cohort support. So the students would be teaching each other and helping each other learn, because we were learning too. And not necessarily able to be experts in any of the tools that we were trying to teach them or help them learn for themselves. In making this work, it was critical, absolutely critical, that we offer them stipends, offer them pretty generous fellowship stipends for the summer program, because in a way that was that was what made it possible for us to say, like, we're not wasting your time. This isn't really a class. This is more like a focus group. We're working together. We're building this together. We were offering them, and we knew we were offering them, a lot of things that would be very valuable to them, not just money for the summer, but a line on their CV and a project that they could point to when they were on the job market later, and a little bit of experience in these programs and projects. At the same time, we came to this with a sense of humility about what we weren't able to offer them, and a sense of, I suppose, good-natured camaraderie without any kind of assumption that we would be able to answer all of the questions, just sort of, you know, buying ourselves a kind of comfort zone where we could reach in and dabble together. For the first year of the program, we just contacted alumni lists from Immersion. We had 6 applications, of which we accepted 5. For the second year, we had an open call for applications to various graduate departments in the humanities. We had 15 applications, and 5 of those were accepted, and it was really painful. The selection process was really painful because those were 15 fantastic applications that were really good. And then here is just kind of a range of the disciplines that were represented. The first year, we were really doing this, you know, scrapping it together in about 2 months planning time. So we offered some standard things, a little bit of hands-on, a little bit of just discussion about, you know, what does data-driven scholarship mean in the humanities. Behold GIS, these are some things that you can do with it without necessarily helping students do them for themselves. The second year, when we had a little bit of experience under our belt, we were able to add to that core program a lot of other things that, you know, expanded the program, enriched the program, made it a little bit less skeletal, a little bit more fleshed out. These 2 topics down at the bottom, topic modeling and data in the disciplines, those are in italics because those were led by faculty members who we came into contact with. And because we had a skeletal program already in place, we could say to them, hey, do you want to teach a session for our Digital Humanities Summer Fellowship program? And they said, great. And that was an excellent way of expanding the scope of the program and also expanding our relationships with professors who were doing their own kinds of digital research that we might not have been involved with previously. So that's kind of what you see here. This is a workshop on topic modeling with a computer science professor who was more than happy to jump in and do some outreach with humanities grads. So outcomes of this program, I have just a couple of minutes left, so I'll keep it pretty brief. There's the graduate projects themselves, and there's a lot of, I think, positive effect on the careers of the graduate students who came through this program. A few of them have already landed what you might call alternative academic positions as they're waiting to go on the formal academic job market. So they've already landed jobs that have something to do with digital scholarship, not wholly on the basis of the program, but I'm sure it didn't hurt any. We've also made contact with new faculty members, as I said. We've been able to expand our offerings of library workshops during the school year as well. So whereas we might have had 1 workshop on text mining before, now we actually have a full sequence of 3. We're also branching out into different kinds of tools. And finally, the best outcome of all is just the positive feedback that we receive and the increase in application numbers every year and the kind of increasing, I guess, coordination with other programs that are existing. We're kind of seeing our network of people a little bit more clearly and seeing what kinds of things are possible because of that. So I think on that note, I'll close so that there's more time for questions later, but thank you very much. And I'll say thank you to our graduate program teams, which gives you a sense of how many people have been involved in this over the past couple of years. It's really been a wonderful undertaking.